As a doctor and a nurse, we've both cared for the dying, and I also worked in palliative care with emphasis on pastoral spiritual care. And we came across an article in the Huffington Post written by Bronnie Ware, who worked in palliative care for many years helping the dying, and she compiled a list of the 5 most common regrets expressed by those that she cared for, and we thought that they were worth sharing because they're so important to our happiness now.
Right. Our value system, Vicki, is really distorted. We're so much into making sure that we have enough money and that we have enough power that we forget about the things in life that really matter the most. And we've got to go back to those basics and start thinking about the relationships in our lives and honor them, because that's what brings us true happiness. It's the development of community that's the most important thing in terms of finding joy.
Well, the most common of these regrets was wishing that people had lived a life that was true to themselves. Because what happens is that many times they end up living a life that's expected of them. Think about it. From when you're little, your parents are telling you what they expect of you. Then maybe you get in a relationship or you get married and your spouse is telling you what they expect of you. And you need to stop and think of what's true to you, who you are and what your dreams are.
Yeah, it's what I call being authentic. And it hasn't anything necessarily to do with honesty or integrity. It has to do with being confident enough that you can put your feelings on your forehead or on your shoulder and say, this is how I feel about that, and not be afraid to venture an opinion. A lot of the times you might relate to being in a class where you don't really know the material that well, and your professor may be a little bit stern. And if you have a question about something, you may go, yeah, I'm not so sure I want to answer or raise the question that I have in mind because I might be punished for it. Being authentic means being true to the feelings that you have inside and not having to judge or to worry about which ones you're going to come out and share with other people.
Well, the other thing is that health brings a certain amount of freedom, and a lot of times people don't realize that until their health is compromised.
Right. And that's why a lot of people on their dying bed, or if they're a loved one's on a dying bed, they go back to the principles of what matters the most in life. It really grounds you. So you begin to get the idea that the things that matter are the things that you treasure that are related to relationships. You're not looking at your bank account or your stock portfolio or your real estate that you own. You're thinking about, gee, I wish I had been closer to my kids, or I wish I had worked things out with my neighbors or with the people in my community. It's about relationship that makes the biggest difference.
Well, the other regret was people thinking and feeling and wishing that they hadn't worked so hard, particularly men. In fact, she said that all the men that she talked to said that, because a lot of them have this six syndrome.
It's a six syndrome. Up at 6, home at 6. Eat dinner, watch TV, play with the kids for a little while, go to bed, do that 6 or 7 days a week. And of course, the value system, again, there is all messed up, because it's about trying to support and give your family the material things in life, whereas what they really need is somebody to use as a role model who's close and can give principles that are good ones to follow.
And so many of these men, particularly because they're more often the breadwinner, of course, they were the breadwinners in the generation that was dying that she interviewed. Mm-hmm. And so they just felt like they missed out a lot with their children.
Well, a lot of jobs too are jobs that it's a job. It's something that makes money for you, so you can do the things you want to do, but it's not necessarily your avocation or your passion. I think if you can make your job your passion, or you can make your passion your job, then you really got something that's going to give you some return on investment for your time and value that you can treasure.
The other regret was wishing that they had been able to express their feelings, because many times people hold their feelings back because they're wanting to keep peace, with whoever it is that they're talking to, and so they end up stuffing these resentments and so forth, and then it makes them sick.
Sure.
The dis-ease.
Yeah, well, we keep a lot of our feelings inside if we're not authentic. If you feel confident about who you are, and you know that you're loved by the universe and that you're an important part of it. In fact, you're indispensable to the universe because there will never be another person who is you or who has had the experience that you have. So you're necessary. So those are the kinds of things that we need to pay a bit more attention to and see if we can develop that inner child and give it a presence that has a voice that we listen to. I see so many patients in my practice who come to me because they don't have this authenticity and they don't know how to express themselves in a way where they can get what they need. And so their inner child is like locked in a jail. They can't get out. And we're the only ones with the key. We have to let them have a way to get out and say what they need, because you can't get well until your inner child gets well.
And another regret was staying in touch with their friends.
Mm.
And many times, over time, and people get busy with their own lives and so forth, and they kind of like let their friendships slip by. Of course, I think in some ways now, with the internet, it's easier to keep in touch with your friends, although you might not have that same quality.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Time with your friends if you're doing it in emails.
Yeah, it's certainly different. I mean, a personal relationship is like this. We're talking to each other and we're connected and we're listening and caring. An internet relationship, it's better than nothing, and we can keep a lot more of those balls in the air, which is good for the friends that we have. And it's not anything like the personal touch from being present.
Well, the other thing too is like, when do you really want your friends at the end? I mean, you would like to be with your friends when you're dying, I would think.
The people that you love, yeah.
But if you haven't been keeping in touch with them, it slips by and it doesn't happen, and vice versa. Because if you have a friend that died, you might be thinking, I wish I had spent more time with them.
Yeah. Well, it speaks to family values, because a lot of people who are dying that are older die alone in the hospital. They're not dying at home or dying in a place where they would choose, so that they feel the best about what's happening with the event. And we look at the event of dying with a lot of negativism, because we have fear. We don't know what's going to happen to us or where we're going to go. And if we have enough trust and faith in how the universe is taking care of us, that isn't such a big issue. And it can be a joyous thing, where the expectation of an experience that's maybe the biggest that we'll ever have had is awaiting.
And another regret that people had was that they wished that they had been happier, and they realized that being happy is a choice.
To an extent it is. It is certainly intellectually a choice. Emotionally, it may be more of a challenge, because if we're raised to not have self-esteem or think that we're valuable or that we're important or that we're loved, then we hang back and we can't be as authentic so easily. And yes, it's a choice, but it's a choice that's very difficult for some people. And those are the ones I spend a lot of time working with in my office.
Well, what happens is many people pretend. They pretend that they're happy. They pretend that everything's going along well.
Yeah.
Or they might have a fear of change. You know, that's like the unknown. And many people want to laugh, and sometimes as they get older, they hold back on that, and they think, oh, well, that's immature, or that's silly, or whatever. But
a lot of judgment. It's hard to be authentic when you don't have a free spirit on the inside that you trust and will allow to come out and play. Because a lot of us, what we do when that inner child wants to come out, we slam the door of that jail shut and say, I can't trust that person because I'll get in trouble. But again, until the inner child gets well, we can't get well either.
I just wanted to relate an example, because our stepdaughter was telling us about two neighbors that she has. One of them has stage 4 cancer that's metastasized like 3 times or something, and he's still getting chemotherapy. And the other one is another neighbor who's actually she has ALS, and she's confined to her home. And so the neighbors were wanting to get together and help her out. And so one of the things that she said that she wanted to have coffee in the morning. So this guy that's got the cancer just ended up buying a Volkswagen bus because he always wanted one and he never had one, and he got some crazy hat. And so she said he's so happy and he's driving this bus, and he's like, I go get coffee every morning anyway, so I'm going to go get coffee for this neighbor that has the ALS.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And he gets his kids off to school because now he can't work anymore, and his wife's doing the work, so he drives the kids to school and he drives himself to his chemo appointments and all that. But she was just remarking about what a wonderful attitude he had. And even though he's going through all this, he just seems so happy because now he's got his Volkswagen
Well,
bus.
not only that, it's the joy of giving. He knows that he's doing something that's important, and he cares about the people that he's involved, engaged with in life. This is a big step forward, and if more of us would develop things like that, we'd have something called a community. It'd be more like a village where we're all part of that village, and we're looking to the weakest link of the village to try and uplift its value.
Well, it sounds like they really have a village going in that neighborhood.
Well,
they're all together helping out.
We're getting back to the older days where people were not living in big cities, where they were all engaged in their own personal values, as opposed to the small towns of the past, where everybody knew everybody and they cared about everybody and they usually would support. It was more of a community than we have today.
Well, the other thing that she didn't have on this list that I'd like to add to the list is our spiritual relationship with God. And
That's
all
huge.
of these things are things that we should really be thinking about now before we are on our deathbed. And it would probably just improve our whole quality of life anyway.
For sure. So when we're looking at this whole topic, we have to keep in mind that we have to be authentic. We should try and get as much as we can out of life. We're learning as we age that you get more out of giving than you do out of taking. It's not about materialism. It's more about love and caring and sharing. If we can act that way, we'll be healthier ourselves, we'll be happier, and the people around us will be happier, and we'll develop something called community.